Yeah, the Christian music guys. Make some noise for the Christian music guys.
Well, today on the Christian Music Guys, we're excited to welcome back a familiar friend and introduce a brand new friend to the show. Four-time guest now, Steven Curtis Chapman, and joining him for the very first time, his wife, New York Times bestselling author Mary Beth Chapman, as they celebrate 40 years of marriage and pull back the curtain on their shared journey and their new book, Still Here, Life Together on the Long Way Home. Welcome, the Chapmans. Thank you guys for joining me.
Good to meet you, Jacob.
Thank you, buddy. Good to be back with you and all your peeps.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right in to this book. 40 years. So I'm a little over halfway there. I'm 22 years here. So I still got some time.
Good.
But let's talk about some things in your book. You shared that you all were hesitant for a long time to write a book about your marriage. What held you back and what ultimately convinced you now that was the right time to do this?
Well, I feel like I think the hesitance was we don't really know what we're doing, and it's by
nobody wants to read that book.
It's by God.
Stuff we don't know. Stephen and me.
Okay. For many years, various people have asked us about writing a marriage book, especially since the song I Will Be Here, which I'm sure will come up in the conversation later. But, you know, he wrote that song so long ago, 37 years ago. And obviously we were in the thick of raising the first three kiddos, and we had no idea what we were doing. We needed a lot of help when we first got married, a lot of things. So super hesitant, even though the song's beautiful and it was a song of deep, deep, deep commitment, actually out of a loss of his parents' divorce. It really threw us for a loop because we really honored and cherished and was trying to lead. They were leading us by example in their marriage. And so it was like, oh, okay. We need to get some tools in our tool belt. We were so young, blah, blah, blah. As the years go on, I think now why we kind of felt like it was time. I don't even know if we really felt like it was time. I feel like we are parents of 6 children now and 7 grandchildren. And I think as the people were asking us about writing a book, 14 years ago, we stood at the crib of our first grandbaby and kind of had an aha moment that, you know, we were holding hands looking at this little person in Ireland. By the way, she was born in Ireland. And it's like, I mean, all the struggles, all the working so hard and, you know, in the marriage and the strife and the good times too. It's like, we could have missed it if we would have thrown in the towel. Like, we're standing here, you know, watching this little miracle person, and we're together doing it, and it's been so worth it. And those grandchildren have continued to be worth it being together. And so we kind of just felt like now is the time to be able to, for sure, not write a book on what to do, because we cannot write that book, but we can write a book on our honest journey and what not to do, and the, you know, the landmines to maybe step around. But hopefully people will feel a realness and an honesty and go, you know what, we're all on a long journey home, and we all really need to choose to bear with one another in love and have a sacrificial, you know, covenant with our partner. Right. And so maybe that's not super popular in 2026. Maybe it will resonate with a bunch of people. Hopefully it will. I'm not talking about staying in marriages that you shouldn't. Obviously there are real hurts and real things out there where people should get help and separate and all that. I'm just talking about the simple irritants that I'm sure you've experienced in your journey.
Never.
How do we bear with one another, and how do we realize that one sinner is married to another sinner, and we shouldn't be surprised that the enemy doesn't want marriages to thrive. And so anyways, that's a long-winded, I'm trying not to be like my husband, but there you go.
I'm rubbing off on her, can you tell? Wow.
That
evil plan is working. No,
usually I ask the men that have been married for a while, what's the secret? And they say, yes, dear.
As you wish. Yes. No, I mean, I would just, you know, say to the end of that and everything that she said. That's really the story. And I think of all the years we would get approached about writing a book, we'd always kind of have that response. You write books when you know what you're talking
doing.
about. We talked to Gary Chapman, Dr. Gary Chapman, 5 love languages the other day, and we kind of had to be careful because we're kind of like, we're talking to the guy who's written how many books, and they're all around,
yeah, good things. It's just that we can't do that.
You're the expert. This guy, he's got the degrees and all. But I think for us, we kind of looked back after 41 years when we were approached again, because we've been approached over the years. And I think we sort of, in so many words, said, man, we still don't feel like we can write a book about, the secrets, the keys, the whatevers, to the highly effective ways to do this. But by God's grace, we're still here. And it was kind of like, I think the publisher and they said, well, write that book. Still here. You're still here. How? Why? And so that's the book, I guess.
Yeah, I think they say, hindsight's 2020. I always wondered when my parents said that, what does that mean? But when you can be at a point in your journey and you look back and we now have so much, memories, time in our rearview mirror, not as much in the forward facing mirror. We're like, well, we did it. We are still here. And so maybe somebody will be encouraged about us just being honest about our journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of being here, I will be here. Obviously, an amazing song. It was in our wedding. That was our wedding song. I'm sure, Steven, if you all got $1 for every time someone sang it in their wedding, you could just retire off of that.
We love hearing it, though. It's so it's really redeeming, really, because he talks a lot about that song being written out of a lot of pain. Again, I don't take words out of your mouth, but he talks a lot about his producer saying, this is going to be a huge wedding song. And Steve's like, really? This is tomorrow morning. You wake up and the sun does not appear. Like if it's a bad day. Yeah. But how beautiful the redemption of, right? Like the redeeming piece of him writing a song out of such pain and hurt for people to make, such strong, commitment statements in their weddings. It's been really, really sweet to hear the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did life turn out anything like you all imagined when those lyrics were first written?
Well, not at all. No. We were still, on every level. You think about just even the music level in the business. That was my 3rd record, right? Yeah, it was More to This Life. So I had, and those first 2 or 3 records, things were cooking along, but honestly, it was very, just purely on the business, career side for what I was doing. And she, right out of the gate, was like, it was us together. She was supportive.
We were really young too.
She was like,
so young.
She was, my chief sounding board, chief financial officer, chief financial lawyer, chief legal counsel. And so, at that point, the song was, we had hopes that I think I'm putting food on the table, shoes on the baby. We had, maybe, I don't know if we had Caleb by then, probably not. We had Emily. Maybe Caleb was on his way, but, it was very early. No idea of all that God had planned for us for adoption and the journey of that, the mountaintops, from, again, on the business side, Grammy Awards and things like that, to the very, deep valleys of grief and sadness and all. So no, it's to suffice. And even though lyrics, I listen back now and it's like, I will be here, when you feel like being quiet, when you need to speak your mind, when the laughter turns to crying, I go back and remember I said I will be here. So I'm here and here we are. But I sing now. It's so funny because when I wrote it, I couldn't imagine, when the mirror tells us we're older, you can cry on my shoulder, I will hold you, that was all just sort of projecting someday down there, the mirror is we're going to look and go, man, we're older.
Here it is.
Here we are. Yeah. And it's like, wow.
And, I knew a lot of times people ask me a lot about kind of where we were at when we got married. I knew he wanted to be a songwriter. That's really what, your goal was. Moving to Nashville was, he told my dad, I think I can provide a living because I think I can write some songs that maybe people will want to record. People will maybe want to hear. So I think I can I think I can
I can
provide.
put food on
We
the
got
table.
married with $50 in our bank account, and my dad forgave the debt on my green Ford Pinto, and away we drove. So
Yes.
no, it has not turned out anything like we would have. I mean, it's been amazing. But yeah, we just held
Yeah.
on for dear life.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say,
Saddled
Those
up.
were some wild horses we got on. We had no idea.
And all these
Yeah.
songs.
yeah.
Hang on too.
Where are the horses that
Now I'm diving in. I gotta dive in. I've got to ride a horse.
yeah, we got to saddle up the horse.
I gotta dance with a dinosaur.
We need those horses like the ones that they used to have at the fair that are connected to a pole that just walk real slow in circles. Where are those horses? Can we get one of those? Because we got these pony ride. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I remember when we first got married, we were planning on going to Gatlinburg for our honeymoon, and I said, "Well, Lindsay, that's my wife's name." And I was like, "If hopefully we get some money from our wedding," and literally that night we opened up all of the cards, and thank God we had enough money to go on our honeymoon. Because I was like, we don't have the money.
It's so awesome, and it's in a way those you wouldn't trade it, right? You would not trade that for what you learn and how you experience life, and you're doing it together, and you're figuring it out, and it's sweet, really sweet.
Yeah, sure. So you guys have a chapter called Bearing with Each Other in Love. What does that actually look like in your everyday life?
Looks like
sometimes I think it's burying my love.
Bearing. Yeah. I mean, yeah, really burying.
No.
Yeah, burying one another in love. Here, I now bury you. No, bearing and you know, and it doesn't always mean BARING. Bearing, you know, that. So when you first get married, I'm like, I'm all about that, bearing with one another. Let's go. But
when you first get married?
Well, I'm just saying.
You're still
out of the gate. Like, can we just
PG people?
We, you know, I mean,
saddle up your horses.
Naked and unashamed, you know, let's go. But BEAR, you know, bearing with that, honestly, for us, I really believe has become, when people have asked, what's the secret? What's the key? What is it? You know, and, you know, crazy kind of this just in news alert, turns out that scripture actually has everything that we need for, if we just could actually do it, which we only can do it through the power of the Holy Spirit and God's work in our lives. And, you know, and we're going to 3 steps forward and 2 steps back it and all of that stuff. And we're going to stumble and fall, and there's grace. Thank God for that, for ourselves and each other. But it really does turn out, at least as we look at, you know, the truth of scripture, and we've sat in a lot of counselors' offices and therapist offices and gone to marriage conferences and all of those things. And some have been helpful. Some have not. I mean, to be honest, some have just not helped.
And some have fired us.
And some have, fired us. Like, you're done. Our work is done here because we can't help you guys because you defy all the odds. But honestly, I think over the years, we have felt like, man, there's so much in scripture that, and it's sort of summed up, and there's one verse in particular that says, you know, bear with one another in love. You know, the idea of that you're carrying a weight of being in relationship with a sinner, a person in process, a person who you're going to need to bear with their, you know, the disappointments that you're going to have with that person, the sin that's going to be, you know, against you, the sin you're going to do to them in your relationship because you're not finished yet. And that so much for us is if there is a key, that's the key, which is kind of over simple. It sounds like, and it's like, really, that's it? No, again, why are you going to write a book? How are you going to fill up a book with that? Just bear with each other, wake up and go, God, by your grace. But there's so many layers of that are really good and amazing about when we look at the life of Christ and his bride. And what's marriage all about anyway? Is it about us getting our way and being happy? Yes, there's incredible moments of joy. It's worth it. That's chapter 10 in our book. But there's also the journey of it, of learning what does it mean more and more to identify with what Jesus has done for us, And what if marriage is all about that? It's like Tim
Tim
Keller
Keller.
says, what if marriage is a whole lot more about making us holy than it is about making us happy? And in bearing with each other,
I'm really holy.
she's so holy. You can't even imagine the halo. You can't see it, but it's there.
I just thought I'd make a joke.
Yeah, she's
Sometimes you gotta go. Oh, there, fix it.
yeah. Halo. It's a little getting hung up on your horn.
In the eye. Getting hung up on my
Horn, too. But that for
Well, you can't get. He can't
that's
get
it.
his halo.
That's it.
It's himself.
Yeah. You know it. It's adjustable. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's a snap back halo. Oh, I'm writing that down. That's a country song right now.
Country song. You heard it here, people. Steven's ideas.
That's
Halo.
right. So obviously, yeah. So obviously, prayer has been an important part of your all's marriage in the 40 years. How has prayer functioned in your marriage, especially during seasons of conflicts and uncertainty?
Well, I think this man right here is a prayer warrior. I don't remember very many, if any, evenings I've gone to bed without him praying over us, praying with us, even from the road, and praying for me, when we've spent so much time apart. But then I just think it's, I talked in an interview yesterday. They're asking me specifically about prayer. And I feel like I've really tried. This has been something that's kind of come later in marriage. As again, I talk about this triangle where Stephen and I are over here, and as we've grown closer to the Lord up here, we've grown closer to each other. And I feel like instead of two of us in a marriage, just like we know, like if I'm frustrated with Stephen, I'm not frustrated with him. I'm frustrated at the enemy. It's like he's not my enemy. There is an enemy. And just like we talk about that, the Lord is with us. There's three of us in this marriage. And so really for me in my prayer life, I've really tried to shift from, when I need to speak my mind, I'm trying to now shift and speak to the Lord and go, you know what? I can't change him. I love him just the way he is. Lord, will you do this work in his heart, and then do the work in my heart too, because I know I'm frustrating him. And so I'm trying to, if that's a visual, just trying to, it's kind of a constant when I drive, when I'm working around the house, I'm just kind of talking to the Lord.
Yeah. I think you said, well, she said, use the word prayer warrior. And, there was remember that movie, I wrote a song
I
for
I follow my knees.
Follow my knees and I fight like a warrior. I am a warrior on my knees. And I wrote that song very, very personally. That was right in the intense battle of having lost Maria and just feeling this overwhelming sense. In fact, I've been hanging out in Psalm 27, and it's a lot about God when my enemy surrounds me, and mighty army surrounds me. I'm not going to be. My heart will not be afraid. It's like, because I know you are with me, and there's just a lot of battle imagery going on, for David, King David, from real battles, but all of that, I think for us, we have experienced, and all of us in marriage, I mean, because we say it all the time, there is a real enemy of everything that is good and beautiful and reflects the heart of God and his relationship with us as his children. And nothing does that, right, more than marriage. That is the whole point of marriage, is to give us the picture of our relationship, the bride of Christ, and our relationship with Jesus and all of that. So it's going to get attacked. It's like that would seem pretty obvious from if that's the closest thing. And from the very beginning, God said, not good for us to be alone, put together, marriage. And, so I think that prayer for us has just been that greatest weapon of battle, to go into battle and recognize that, we are facing an enemy, but we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And just, that prayer is there's a battle going on. And I think that for us, we've recognized that and realized that. And I've learned a lot about, prayer, what it ain't supposed to be. Like, it's not the time to preach to her. Learned that early in our marriage. Lord,
Same
help
here.
my wife to understand that she's really not seeing this clearly.
Yes.
That is not,
Or
it's like
aren't
the
you going
Lord's
to
like,
apologize?
yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
The Lord's
Don't
like,
say
oh, no,
that.
I'm not listening to you. But so there's been a lot to learn, especially on my part about it. But yeah, it has been so, just kind of
Critical.
critical to, our journey, to just cry out to God in really, just real honesty, not even knowing what to pray sometimes other than
And
God, we're here together at your throne. Help, that's it. That's the only prayer we got. Just help us.
And I think it's also that has also helped us to remember to thank God in all of the ways in which he needs to be thanked. I mean, I think about last week, even just Steven did a concert at the Ryman. He was frustrated. He thought he was going to be frustrated vocally. And it was a great concert. It was just so fun and sweet to watch him do this speechless, revisit Speechless and get to do it on the Ryman, sold out crowd, blah, blah, blah. And it was so good. And I told him after the concert, I'm like, I walked out to my seat and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to say to him. I don't know how to encourage him. And you know what? You're going to have to do this. And then we all sat up there and it was just such a beautiful show. And it's like, we can only give the Lord the credit. We're going to thank him. And
Yeah.
there's Tennessee
So
allergy.
if you guys were to go back, is it 1986? Is that 40 years ago? Yeah. 1980. Was that the year y'all got married? 86.
Well, we got married in 84.
You got married in 84.
84.
We're going on 42 years.
42 years, yeah.
42 years. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you were to go back in 84, what would you say to yourselves now?
Run. No,
Ran for it.
I'm sorry. You knew I was going to do that. You knew I was going to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
I did.
I think I would probably, I go back to 1984, knowing what we've been through. I might, the first word that came to me after run was breathe, maybe, rejoice. That's pretty quickly followed by hang on.
Yeah.
It's been such a journey, but I think in those early years, trying to do it right and trying to be, the artist that you're just asking the Lord, give me, so much pressure to, when you get record labels involved and all the things and, what do I do? What's right? What's wrong? The critics, the fans, all of that. And, I think we spent really a lot of angst, just really wanting to do it right. This is a man who stewards his platform, not perfectly, but as well as, he just really, really, it matters. And so I think maybe that word breathe would have been to maybe enjoy it and try to relax a little more along the way, because we spent a lot of years pretty tightly wound.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. We're just trying to do it right. We just didn't want to do it wrong.
Yeah. I've it's funny when I get asked that question, a lot of times, it's like, what would your, 63-year-old self tell your 23-year-old self or whatever, and I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes maybe it's a cop out answer, but a lot of times I'll say, I don't think I would want to say a lot, because the journey of where you are, I mean, where would you begin, to say, but I think that's probably as good as it is. Just, I thought of Oswald Chambers' words, trust God and do the next thing. You're going to overthink, you're going to try to figure it out. And boy, overthinker, president of the club, Overthinkers Club, and paralysis of analysis and all those things. But can you just trust God, and do the next thing, take the next step. And because you're going to misstep, you're going to go left, right, and you're going to hear a voice saying, this is the way, walk in it. Just keep your eyes on Jesus. I mean, I wrote pretty much all the songs. I'd go back and go, Remember that song you wrote, Keep Your Eyes on Jesus on the Weekdays? My very first radio single all the way back.
Yeah.
Kind of that's it. You know, my Redeemer is faithful and true. He's going to be faithful. Just keep your eyes on him.
I think it's important for people to remember. I just went this past week to watch a concert of one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Colony House. And those are our son's band. And Caleb's last record, 77, he released it in part 1 and part 2. And really the crux of the record is really trying to help his fan base realize you're right where you're meant to be. And that's in the good and the bad, right? God has us right where we're meant to be. So I think if we go back to 1984 and just kind of try to live in that moment, in the good and in the hard to go, we're right where we're meant to be. We just have to take that next step. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do the next thing and trust the
Right.
Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little fun real quick. I want to run through these. We're going to do Who's Most Likely to Married Edition.
Yeah, I love this game. I love games.
Who is most likely, just raise your hand, to be the first one up in the morning, no matter how late they were up the night before?
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was going to try to answer it.
Forget why they walked into the room. Lose track of time because they're completely focused on one thing. Be more likely to say I'm sorry first. That's a smart man. Find humor in a tense moment to break the ice.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Humor.
Who's most likely to tell a long, detailed story and forget the original point halfway through? Who's most likely to think they're being very clear while the other has absolutely no idea what they're talking about?
I think I'm being very clear, and you act like you have no idea what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Appreciate you guys. So as we wrap up, what is next for you guys, and how can our viewers and listeners keep up with what's going on?
Well, what is next for us?
You got a little bit of a break this summer, right? Oh,
Scuba
guess what?
school.
This is just in.
Scuba certification.
We're going to be certified in scuba.
If we survive. So this may be the last interview.
For Steven, because
Maybe our last interview. I'm not the strongest swimmer.
He's agreed to do it with me. We do our pool work tomorrow.
We're going on a trip.
Oh my gosh.
And
we're going on
where
a trip.
there's some scuba snorkel. So we'll see how that goes.
A song will come about of that, maybe.
I'm diving in. Yes.
Who knows? Anyways, that's just kind of a fun thing we're trying. But he'll be back on the road in the fall with another leg of the speechless tour.
The last final speechless tour run to try to take it to California, to the West Coast, because we hadn't made it to the West Coast. And so we're trying to get there and
then continuing our work with Show Hope. If anybody's interested about the work of Show Hope, showhope.org.
Yeah.
We do a lot of advocacy over in DC. We're making a trip there next week to talk to some of the officials that could make it easier for some folks to adopt, and so that's always important. But just
lots of
grandbabies to keep up with.
Grandkids time. Yeah.
So if I'm doing my math right, 2027 would be 35 years from the release of The Great Adventure. So maybe we could do a run of that, Steven.
If that happens, we'll break it first with you. How's that?
Yeah. We'll get the scoop.
I think Steven should bring a real horse.
Yes, I will learn to ride a horse. That'll be
come from the ceiling on a horse.
Oh yeah, yes, that's a great idea. I would be diving in from the horse.
Yeah. Just better have Morgan and Morgan on the phone.
Yes. Right, the insurance in place.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, to wrap up, you guys, I'd like to see if you'd be willing to share something that God's been doing in your lives recently that would help build our viewers and listeners' faith.
You know what? I think I probably can, I don't want to speak for both of us, but I can say, for both of us, we are finding that I read recently in scripture, just the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 and, the amazing story of that and providing. But then I never really even saw this, but Jesus goes from that into reminding his disciples and reminding the people about the feeding that God did in the wilderness for the Israelites of manna, and that it was intended to be,
Just
daily, just enough for the day. And they wanted to collect it and hoard it and, store it up because can we trust God for tomorrow? And his whole point was, and Jesus said, I am the bread. I am the manna, that God has now provided, and I'm going to be enough, but it's going to be daily, receiving from me what you need. And I just feel like even after all these many years, that still seems to be, what I know I'm learning. I think what we keep learning is that we just have to stay connected, abide in, connected to the one who is our source.
It goes without saying, it's all through scripture that God, tells us not to worry about tomorrow. We have enough for today to keep our minds occupied. Yeah. So trying to live in that posture, because I can worry a lot about what's coming. And then for us, I think the Lord is just really, I'm really trying to be intentional with my grandchildren, and just knowing that I'm not going to get emotional, but I won't always be here for them. So just trying to, just be really intentional with what I'm trying to plant in them, whether it's my humor, my odd sense of humor, or just truths that the Lord has taught me. So just trying to, that intentionality of what the Lord has for us in today.
Yeah. Well, that is so good. Steven and Mary Beth, thank you so much for chatting with me. Still here, Life Together on the Long Way Home. The book is out now on audio. I've been listening to it on audio, and so get your copy today. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jacob.
They're the Christian music guys. Yeah, the Christian music guys.